With me is my friend Dan Szczesny, who is also a writer, author, a parent of a young child, and most importantly, a cheerleader for people in the writing community. And what I've always respected about Dan is his whole attitude of bringing people along with him in whatever it is he does. And as a community builder, I have just so much respect, Dan, for what you do. And I know we've spent a long time trying to get together on this conversation.
Yes.
Because
Yes, we
unlike
have.
people who have had more time being quarantined, we have each found that the opportunity to get things done or the workload is doubled.
Yes.
To be a parent and self-employed on your own has got to be an amazing flip when everyone else moved home with you.
It's right. We were just talking about this earlier, right? Everyone else moved home with me. Well, thank you, Keith. It's really good to see your face again, by the way. Even if we are virtual, this is how we got to do it nowadays. But yeah, it's been weird because, as you mentioned, that this is not me changing my life. This is my normal life. All of a sudden, having people and things around me, it's a big difference.
Right.
And when Uma's my daughter, when Uma, is out of school, she's in pre-K, but she's still out of school, and my wife is working from home, which makes me a stay-at-home dad again, which is what I was in the first year of Uma's life, and now here I am again. So, my work time is now a half an hour here, an hour there, or evenings like you and I are doing, where I can find time, and I try to. It's like a puzzle piece, you try to put your hours together around right. The time when you're doing parenting and when you're doing, schooling and, keeping up the house and things like that. So it's been a challenge. Yeah. But you're right. It's a challenge, but it's also satisfying. I think it's going to be, it'll be interesting to see how we look back on this time.
Right. Well, we're living in history as it's being recorded. And unlike a novel, or maybe it is very much like writing a novel, we don't know the ending. And I've talked to authors who don't know the ending. It changes as the character takes a life all its own.
I agree completely with you. I'll tell you what, though, the ending is going to be different from how it began.
Yes,
though.
I agree. We'll never go back to where we were. And really what I wanted to hone in on for this segment was you are such a cheerleader for writers in New Hampshire and writers in general, that for people who are either not a writer or for people who have just entered the gig economy, without planning to, you have some really good gifts of direction that you have given to people, from we're all in this together to the advice that you had mentioned just before we went live about don't sit and write if you're a writer. And I thought that's an amazing statement to make. And I'd love for you to share why and what you're getting out of the parent and all the other pieces that go into it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Well, first of all, if you're just entering the gig economy, I'm really sorry. Gosh, you're in for it. What a time to enter the gig economy. No, so it's here's my take on all of this, Keith. I feel like I've heard from a lot of writers who are, using this time to write, right? Well, I now have all this time on my hands, and I'm going to get some words down, and I'm really going to, plug away at those projects, and that's fine. I don't want to. Everybody has their own process, but for me, I feel like when we get out of the end of this tunnel, right? Whenever things, and I put this in air quotes, whenever things go back to normal, I don't really think things are going to go back to normal, but whenever things go back to normal, if all that you've done in 3 months is put words down on paper, and then a library or a bookstore calls you and says, "Hey, all of our in-person events are canceled for the next 6 months. We want you to do a virtual event." You need to be able to say, "Absolutely, I know exactly how to do that. I'm practiced at it. I've done Zoom. I've done WebEx. I have my presentation. I can give you a slideshow virtually." And that's a real leg up, because so I've spent most of my time learning marketing, learning how to do this virtually, learning how to talk to you, learning
you've done it really, really well, Dan.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see is your utilization of Facebook as a test tube almost, because you've got your daily life experiences, those few sentences you write, are you doing your craft?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've engaged your whole family and your audience. You've brought us
Yeah.
into your life. It's just, to me, a very amazing thing.
Well, I don't want people to forget about me.
Well, they won't. And the other thing
You don't
that
want readers to say we're, 3 months down the road. Who is that again? So yeah.
but you've got your daily presence. You're
Yeah.
getting work done. We have both talked about how parenting interrupts the workday. Well, maybe
Yeah.
it's the other way around. You put work in and around where there's
Yeah.
time for the work because you're an expert at what you do. You could do it in your sleep. And
Yep.
people would be bored if all you did is read books you've already
Right.
written.
Exactly.
The other thing you had mentioned that I really wanted you to touch on was this circle of okayness
Yeah.
as a family thing, because I think it applies to all of us. We're driven by fear right now, uncertainty, doubt, and you have created this circle of okayness beyond just your inner family to the
Right.
people who check in with you. Tell me a little more about that, because
Yes.
important.
So this is my good friend and a great writer, a New Hampshire writer. Her name is Allison Szabo. She came up with the idea of the concept of a circle of okayness, and that is, like anything else, right? We sort of craft our universe in concentric circles, right? How close you are to people, and then acquaintances, and then business associates, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, we've sort of flipped that on its head, right? For this pandemic, we now have created a circle of concentric rings of okayness. Like, so the right in the middle, right, would be my wife and my daughter and my in-laws, my daughter's grandmother and grandfather.
Mhm.
And then, the next ring is my daughter's close friends who she can't have contact with, but we have to have connection with, right? Even though you can't be in contact with people, you have to connect with people. It's a fine line, but you got to keep doing it. And then, and then people and friends, like folks like yourself. I would consider social media to be very close to your circle of okayness, right? You have to get out there. If you're a musician, you better be giving concerts on FaceTime, on Facebook Live. If you are a writer, you better be doing little videos like this, talking about the craft. Like we had mentioned Neil Gaiman, the great stuff that the
Right.
personal stuff that he's doing at home. There's this whole group of writers who are doing these writing from home videos that have nothing to do with writing. But what they do is they take their cell phone and they give you a tour of their library. How fascinating is that?
Right.
I'm utterly fascinated by what writers have in their libraries, So you have to do it. You have to be authentic and let it be a little bit raw. I'm not in a studio here, I'm in my office, and let it be a little bit raw and just talk from the heart and keep connected to people. That's the circle of okayness. I want people to be okay with me.
Fantastic.
And I want to be able to reach out.
Yeah, and I'm a champion and a sponsor and patron of all of your work, and it's
Yes,
to
which
see
I
this is a
appreciate.
wonderful thing. One last question for you,
Anything.
and this may be a hard one,
Oh,
because usually what I finish with is, with all that's happened, right? There's pre-COVID and there'll be a post-COVID-19. But is there one thing that you take away from this experience that makes a real big difference for you that you hadn't thought of until this happened? Something that you carry forward?
oh boy, that I haven't thought of until this happened. Time management.
Hmm.
I'm usually a real sort of stickler with my time management. I sort of plan out my weeks. Every Sunday I sit down and I come up with a schedule for that week. And I'm really, you put up the do not disturb on the door, and I'm really certain, and routine is very important to me. Was very important. And the one thing that I'm coming away from this now is that maybe that isn't as important as I thought it was. I'm getting more work done now, and I'm having more family time now than I
Yes.
had prior to this, right? So I start thinking, well, wait a minute. Maybe I can have that both. Maybe I can loosen the routine up a little bit and not freak out because I only wrote 1,000 words that day instead of 2,000. But the rest of that time, that other hour, I spent, watching doing art recreations with my 5-year-old daughter.
Well, it's enrichment. It's the role that I have for kids, right? As part of our homeschooling, I'm the enrichment guy. I like to do recess. I like snack time, and this enrichment is our letting go of this preconceived notion of time.
Yeah,
It's a great point, and I thank you for joining us on this.
And you're very welcome. And if you're happy about it, if your life is happier because you're doing it, then your writing is going to be better.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us
today. Thanks for having me, Keith. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you. Good to see you, Dan. Take care. Keep writing.
You too.